Hi. Sometimes we think that there is so much competition in the different institution. We cannot get the education because a lot of people face this challenge, and it there could be competition or not. That is who you are going to decide yourself.
Mhm.
With me today is a very bright man. You can see, and he's working in an academy that helps you to focus on education instead of competition. So we should be focusing on what we need to learn rather than something else that he's going to talk about. My name is Mohammed Bashir, and I'm founder of Entrepreneur Empowerment Club. Please help me welcome Rome, and he will pronounce his name again, as he is a campus program manager at Bright Academy. Welcome, Rome.
Hey, thank you for having me, Mohammed. It's a pleasure to be here. Like you said, my name is Arome Yakubu, but I go by Rome. I'm the student programs manager at Hackbright Academy, and we were originally created in San Francisco, California, but have since COVID have become national. We have campuses, we have classes going on all across the U.S. And at
Mhm.
Hackbright, we are a women and non-binary individual software engineering bootcamp.
Thank you, Rome. Let me ask you a question. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Ooh, great question. So, originally in my career, I actually am originally from a career in politics. I worked as a political operative pretty much from middle school all the way up until 2016, when after the 2016 election, I decided that it was time I did something different and something new. And then moved into the technology org and specifically diversity and inclusion in tech. So, if I could say, the one person who has inspired me to just do whatever I want and encourage me to kind of like try new things, I'd probably say is my dad for sure. He came to America with absolutely nothing. He originally is from Nigeria, Kogi State, Nigeria. Um, Decided to leave, went to Scotland, got his PhD, had my sister. Was with my mom, and then came to the States and started working and kind of like I've used that as like the basis for inspiration for a lot of things that I've done in my life. Because if he can, like, I feel like my problems comparative to what he was going through at my age are like really nothing.
What are the top three mistakes to avoid as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so in addition to Hackbright, I have a couple of other things that I work on. One of which is I donate computers that I get from tech companies around the Bay Area to students in Nigeria. Um, in addition to that, I have like a small side business where I write corporate papers, and in addition to that, I also do like computer repair and like things here and there. So yeah, I'd say like the top three things to try to avoid as an entrepreneur are one, like complacency. I definitely think that the idea of like being satiated tends to, make you a little bit slower, make you a little bit like you're a little bit more comfortable, right? And you're less likely to take risks. So I think like just generally being complacent can be a very negative trait. The next thing I would say is like fear is definitely something to avoid. If you, like things that are nothing is things that are hard have a bigger reward, right? Things that make you more nervous and make you more worried actually have a overall bigger reward. So I definitely say you like fear is there for a reason, right? It's there to warn you. It's there to kind of, like temper what you're doing if it's dangerous, but it can also be a hindrance. So try to avoid like having that fear, like that worry of failure. Like it really doesn't matter if you fail, right? All you can fail a million times, you just have to succeed once. And then three is, yeah, like I think a one really big mistake that many people in like the executive level make is using people as a means and not the ends of themselves, right? Like people are always the end goal, right? People are never just a tool to get to your goal, right? They are the goal in of itself, and that you have to really keep sight of that, or you can lose your bearings and you can find yourself in some really uncouth positions.
What is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
Ooh, all right. Wow, it's like super personal. But okay, so early in my career in the technology space, I got a role that I was way too junior for. Like I was doing like recruiting. I was definitely there was like no like I was like a foundational recruiting manager. I'd never had a recruiting job before in my entire life. And over the span of that year, I was like, you know, trying to just juggle all these things, HR, recruiting, visas, like outsourcing. It was just really intense. It was really, really insane. And I definitely will say that for that company, I was way too junior. Like there was no like that company was growing so rapidly. They kind of put me in this position way too junior. It ended up not working out. And obviously I felt like, a huge failure. I felt like I had let the company down. I felt like I had let myself down. But kind of what I took away from that experience is that one, you should just give it a shot because I was in that role for over a year. So it was like things were working, right? Like some things were working. I just think that the idea was like to get to the next level, like I could not be that person. To be realistic with yourself in terms of like what you can and can't do. I kind of had this like vision of myself as like, oh man, I can just like learn this stuff on the fly. But that was an unrealistic expectation because a senior recruiting manager is going to have like decades of experience, right? And here I was with like just a couple years of experience, thinking I could come in and like break things and make it work. And yeah, I think that kind of I learned how to like temper my arrogance. I'd say like it was very like humbling experience to know that yeah, you don't actually know everything, and that experience, like grit is not a way of overcoming inexperience, right? Granted, learned a lot, got a lot of information, did really great, but yeah, just grit is not a way of overcoming experience. To a certain extent, you do need some experience.
Enough about the failure. Let's move to the success because you made it. So please share us your top three success secrets that others can follow.
Yeah, top three success secrets. I would say, delegate, delegate as much as possible. If there's no reason you should do it, if someone else is willing to do it for you. So that's something I learned in politics very well. Is like delegate as much of your work as possible. Um, the next thing I would say is understand how you learn. So I think like a big portion of kind of being successful in the long term is understanding learning, and like you need to know like are you a visual learner, are you a hands-on learner, like what is the way that you what is the way that you accumulate information and like retain it. Personally, it wasn't until I was much older that I found out that I can only learn by like being hands-on and doing things. And I think that kind of changed my whole trajectory, right? That it made it so much easier for me to learn on the job and do other things after learning that. And then finally, just yeah, make sure to take some time for yourself. If you go, you can go. It is very hard to keep at 100% consistently. You're gonna have like ebbs and flows in your emotion, right? So just make sure that you're conscious of when those things happen and that you take some time for yourself so that you feel prepared, you feel ready for the next fight.
Rome, we are entering into a speed round. That means quick questions and quick answers. Are you ready for it?
Oh wow, rapid round. Okay, sounds very Jeopardy.
What is the most impactful business book you have read, and what did you learn from it?
Okay. So honestly, I don't know if this counts as a business book, but I do think that it has implications in business. But it was Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. So in this book, they study a little bit about how the brain works and how like the human mind assesses information by very much so comparing it to a computer, right? And I think that what I learned from it is that there are certain traps that your mind will get into that are like honestly unavoidable for you. So like the best way to overcome those is to like constantly be reviewing what you're doing, reviewing your work. There's a lot of information about implicit bias in this book as well, and that how implicit bias actually hurts you very much so in the long term. So I think that's probably one of my greatest takeaways from the book is just kind of like being able to you don't. It's one thing like to think about a problem is one thing, but then to get out of that problem and think like about your thought process in this problem is like a whole nother series. It's like a whole nother level of knowledge.
That's great learning. What did you want to be remembered? What do you want to be remembered for?
Yeah, so I work at Hackbright Academy. I help women and non-binary individuals find jobs, and honestly, I want to be remembered for that. Really, is like that ability. Like there is no greater feeling than helping somebody find a job and helping somebody like you know get to the next level in their career, like actually do what they want. And yeah, I think it's very empowering, and I want to be remembered for like that effect I have on people's lives.
How do you overcome a challenge life throws at you?
Um, Honestly, I'm a really hard-headed person, so just barreling straight through frequently is kind of my strategy. Is uh, I definitely think one thing that my parents really imposed on me and really taught me was that like everything is overcomable. In time everything can be overcome. So just being able to know that whatever challenge you have now, either you'll beat it or you won't, but it'll pass in time and you'll find new challenges and there's always a new battle.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
Oh, what do I want to do when I grow up? I would definitely like to eventually run my own coding school, and then just generally like kind of like see that success for students, make it 100% free. And then in addition to that, yeah, I'm kind of doing a lot of what I do want to do when I grow up. So I feel like that running my own school and maybe even further down the line running for office or something one day.
Once you have a revenue generating idea, how do you convince your significant other?
Oh, well, that's an easy question. I don't have a significant other, so it's super easy for me to really like pour my work in. But I think that comes like I have been in a situation like that before, and especially if you're about to like burn resources on this idea, which I think is where a lot of the conflict comes in. Like you're sharing resources, right, and you're gonna like make this risk. I think really it's a kind of like a belief process. Like if this person believes in you, like they will get buy-in. If they really believe in what you're doing, if you can really plan it out, if you can really say like this is our timeline, and if it doesn't work within this time frame, this is our plan B, then I think it's easier to convince them.
What are you grateful for today?
What am I grateful for today? I am grateful that it is not raining in San Francisco. That's pretty nice. I'm pretty happy about that. But in general, I'd say I'm grateful for my friends and family, and I'm grateful to have like amazing people in my life who continue to support me.
Who is your living mentor and what is the impact they have on you?
Oh, interesting question. I would have to say my living mentor right now is our director of education, Maggie from Hackbright Academy. Honestly, one of the most amazing people I've ever worked with. I've learned so much from her over the span of these last 3 years. And it's like really been a pleasure to work with her. And I've got to say, like, I've never met anyone more hardworking or dedicated in my life.
Why being impactful is important to you?
I think it should be important to not just me, but everyone. But why is it important to me? Yeah, I just feel like if we just if everybody made a real effort to leave the world just a little bit better than what they found it, we would be living in like a perfect society, right? So that's where I come from when I try to do my impact. Is like just try to make like incremental change, just make things a little bit better for the next person. Really like end that problem of the tragedy of the commons, right? Uh, I think you're
Uh,
muted there, but
yeah, how do you start your day?
yeah, every day I wake up and I make an espresso, and it has actually become very critical to my mental health. So that's like my favorite thing to do in the morning is to like wake up, make an espresso.
Who is the ideal client for you or for Bright
Ooh,
Tech?
who is the ideal client? I'd say like the ideal client is someone who is interested in like systemic change, somebody who is not just coming to Hackbright or not just reaching out to us because they want to make they want some points on diversity and inclusion, right? What we really want is somebody who recognizes the problems that are facing the technology industry and is willing to, make sacrifices to fix those things.
What is the advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh, great one. I would say buy Bitcoin. Yeah, I'd probably say like buy Bitcoin while you're super young. Um, Although it's never too late, buy some cryptocurrencies now.
How can we support you?
Yeah, you can support me by just reaching out on LinkedIn, reaching out to Hackbright Academy. My LinkedIn is down. Thank you for that, Muhammad. But my LinkedIn is at the bottom. We are always looking for folks to sponsor students to go through the course for free. I think one thing that we're seeing in terms of like long-term education is like companies are going to be doing education, right? Like we've just seen like an utter failure of funding on both like the city, state, and federal level. And kind of what we've seen is like the burden of education funding has really fallen on the companies, in terms of like creating education and creating something that's useful in the job search, right? I mean, I'm sure y'all can imagine going back into college, like I feel like I didn't learn anything that was useful to my job search in college, right? So with that being said, if like companies are really going to be going down this route, I think like one thing that we need to do and be prepared for is that the groups that have already historically been underrepresented, so like protected classes, women, folks with disabilities, people of color, right? They need to still have access because a lot of these companies are still dominated by old money, right? Like folks who have been wealthy for generations. So if you want to help, the best thing I think you can do is help sponsor the education of somebody from a protected class. Make sure that they have access to kind of like the technology that will be the future, right? Because I mean, the people who are building the products now are actually developing what the future is going to look like 15 years from now. And if we're not part of those conversations, if folks from protected classes aren't part of those conversations, you're going to be cutting out huge swaths of the society.
What would you say about your guest experience on the show?
It's been great. It's been great. It's very it's got to say it's been a while since I've done kind of an interview like this. So, thank you so much for having me.
Let's wrap up the conversation. So, what would you say as a final word?
Um I would say that, to anybody watching this who maybe is feeling down or feeling like they don't know what to do next, those times will pass. Like there is the nice thing about life is that there's no path, right? Like anybody, like you can go from a slave to a king, right? It's hard, but it's possible. There's no one, especially if you're much younger, like when you're really young, you kind of have all these rules and these guidelines and these set of things that you have to do. But as you grow older, you find that you're still doing those rules and guidelines that you've been told, but they actually mean nothing to you now. So I would just say always revisit your worldview, always revisit kind of what you're thinking and what kind of your thoughts on life, and you'll do great. You'll be fine.
Rome, thank you so much for your time and wisdom. And on the behalf of Entrepreneur Empowerment Club and our entire team, we really appreciate you. I hope our path cross again with another amazing guest. Until then, you have a wonderful time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for reaching out.